Welcome to Her Fantasy Football. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio /Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe to us at herfantasyfootball.com so you know what we're doing this off season. You can also chat with us on Twitter at Her Fantasy FB and on Facebook /Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I'm Brandon Marianne Lee.
And this is our quarterback show, and we were going to get in depth with our quarterbacks. Make sure you go to herfantasyfootball.com to check out our rankings. Ashley, stop messing with your mic.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm getting
knock it off.
Getting antsy. It's not the proper angle.
Should we restart and then you just cut out the front? Yeah. That was a lot of.
Was it really?
It was really bad.
Ashley's on location. We'll give her. It's okay. We'll let it go. We'll let it go. She's traveling, so she's in her little hotel room.
Yeah, I've got my
Where
travel mic.
in the
world
is Ashley Williams this week?
We're back to the
Where
Milwaukee
are you this week?
era. I'm in Orlando.
Milwaukee.
I'm in
You're
Orlando.
in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But back in the day, she used to always be in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, yeah.
Yeah. Lucky you.
And then there was the last year where you never knew where I was going to be. So this is another similar year.
This is exciting. We're going to have a game, and it's like, what hotel room? Hey, hotel rooms, if you're sponsoring and you want to sponsor somebody, let us know. Maybe we can
That's
hook
a
you up
better
with
one.
Ashley's
Guess which
location.
hotel I'm in and they can win something. That would be fun.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We should do that.
It could get a little stalkerish, but you know, like.
Do you switch hotels? Because I know when my husband travels, he goes to the same hotel every time.
I used to go to the same hotel, but then classic work enlisted a policy where you have to stay at certain hotels or under certain dollar values. So now they're making us all switch things up. Classic corporate.
Corporate.
I think you're at a Holiday Inn Express.
Wrong.
I think you're at a Courtyard.
Also wrong.
Oh.
All right, guys, put in your votes on Twitter at Her Fantasy FB, unless you want to tweet Ashley directly at Ashley Her FFB. What hotel room is she staying in? It's not the Courtyard, Marriott Courtyard. No. And Brandon, your guess was the
Holiday Inn Express.
Holiday Inn Express. Neither one of those are correct, so get on it. Before we dive into some quarterbacks, most of the quarterbacks, we just started our first fantasy draft of the season, real one, on Monday, Scott Fish Bowl. Yay!
Yeah.
480 teams.
480 teams. So if you see hashtag SFB480, it's for Scott Fish Bowl 480 teams. That's what you're seeing there. We're tweeting at each other. It's a lot. It's broken into 12-team leagues, which is good. I'm in the Harrison Ford division. I got the best one, I must say. I'm in the classic actors, and I get
Classic
Harrison
actors.
Ford.
Ooh.
Yes. Pretty classic.
What are you,
I'm a
Brandon?
classic. Brandon?
I'm in the Leading Ladies, and I'm in Tina Fey.
Ooh.
Which I thought was hilarious. Tina Fey was in Leading Ladies and not in Funny Ladies.
Didn't make a lot of sense, but I'm into it.
She is the funny lady.
But she's a leading funny lady.
Was there a funny
She's
lady
the
category?
That's right.
Yeah, there were
Yes.
funny girl categories.
She's like the funny lady. Who's funnier than
I know, but now that I think about it, it's like Hugh Grant with romantic comedies. He is the leading man in romantic comedies, but you're not going to put him into funnies. He's a leading man. It's Tina Fey's up there now. She's doing it.
All right, fair enough.
And Ashley, what are you?
I'm in the badass women, and I am in Kate Beckinsale.
Hot.
It's hot.
I was kind of like, yeah.
You threatened.
Granted,
by
I
that.
haven't seen any of those movies. What was that? Something Underworld, I want to say. I'm assuming that's why, because like Scarlett Johansson's in it. I'm assuming from her Marvel's agents and such. But
She's the highest paid actress.
Brandon's making a weird face as if I shouldn't have said something.
No, I'm just trying to think of what Kate Beckinsale's been in.
I think it was Underworld. That was the whole scandal, remember? Because she was with Martin Sheen, and then she ditched him for the director, who she's now not married to anymore. But they said there was no cheating because obviously they're still friends, and they're like one of those couples that like goes on vacation together as a divorced couple, as a family, and that they do it perfectly.
You seem to know a lot about her.
I do. I love Ian. I may or may not like her.
We gotta speed this show up and get to fantasy here. I'm glad I know about Kate Beckinsale.
What hotel Kate Beckinsale's in right now.
Okay.
All right, well, let's get into this. So we have it in the Scott Fishbowl League. You have 8 hours to make a pick. Most people do it way faster than that. We are in the 10th round in my league.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're in the 10th round. Brandon, I think, is what, in the 12th?
13th.
13th round.
Yep. I'll be taking my 13th pick here after the show's done. I'm next up.
Yay.
Wow. I'll be taking my 8th pick. Probably a large fault to me today because I took 8 hours to draft.
To apologize to
I know. I apologize to everybody in the Kate Beckinsale one. Although I did tweet this morning at like 6 a.m. on my way to my meeting. I had an 11-hour straight meeting today at my desk job with no breaks. And so I was not able to. And it's one of those classic rooms where they put you all at a round table so you can't like do anything other than just stare at each other and do actual work, which is the worst.
Worst.
Yeah.
It's a 2-quarterback optional league. Ladies, when did you take your first quarterback? Now, this is a 2-quarterback league, so we're not saying necessarily we're going to do this in standard leagues, but Brandon, when did you decide to pull the plug and grab one?
I think I waited until the 4th round. I'm trying to get to my thing here. For me, I was all about values. So this year, I decided that I was going to go with, this is crazy, contrarian as it may be, running back. Instead of 0 running back, I got David Johnson and Devontae Freeman up top. I was like, you know what? I was at the end of the round, and I thought, now I don't have to worry about running backs. I'm taking very few because I have 2 guys I know that I'm going to be starting. I feel good about them. And you know what? I actually don't hate my team. And I know that's not encouraging. But so my 3 quarterbacks are Carson Palmer, which was my first quarterback that I took, and then Tony Romo, and then Teddy Bridgewater. And I don't hate that. My wide receivers right now are Eric Decker, Julian Edelman, Devontae Parker, and Sammy Watkins.
All right.
What round did you get Eric Decker in?
It was like the 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have it pulled up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have my roster pulled up. I don't have the whatchamacallit pulled up.
Okay.
And so and I like Devontae Parker this year big time. I think that he's going to be getting a lot of targets. I think that running your offense through the slot receiver like Jarvis Landry is tough. And I think Adam Gase is really going to try to get Devontae Parker more involved. So I really like him. And then my other running backs, they're not great, but I have Devontae Freeman and David Johnson, like I said, and then Bilal Powell and Tevin Coleman. And I did the handcuff. I was like, you know what? Fine. You think Devontae Freeman's going to lose all these touches? I got them both. I feel fine.
Good.
That's right.
Good. Ashley, what was your drafting strategy? I know you're only in the 8th round, so.
Again, my bad. It's funny. I feel like this is the one draft that I feel like I go in with a strategy and I never even stick remotely close to what my strategy is going to be. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, Scott Fishbowl, but you throw me off my game on what I want to do. I actually went wide receiver out of the gate. I have Antonio Brown, Allen Robinson, and Jordy Nelson as my
nice.
So,
and this is a half-point PPR, so that's a nice wide receiving core.
Well, that's the thing. It was like value because I was just like, I can't not take. If Jordy Nelson's right there for me as my 3rd pick, I can't not take that. I need some help in my running backs because I took the Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill. But they both fall into the top 15 running backs every single season.
It's not that bad.
I agree.
And
I don't hate getting both of them. And we get to play up to 5 or 6 running backs, you guys. This isn't a 2 running back league.
Yeah.
We get to play up to 5, I think, running backs. So having both of them, you get another 2 guys you can start, and I think that's fine. Yeah.
And they're both top 15 running backs, so I was like, again, I'm going to take them. I'm not going to stress about bye weeks. I'd still rather have one really bad bye week but have 2 top 15 running backs out of the gate. And then that was my 4-5 slot, and then I went Phillip Rivers and Matthew Stafford because my league went heavy quarterbacks out of the gate. So I was like, I'd rather take the receivers and get some running backs that I know will at least fall minimum top 20 for both of them, and then take 2 middle-of-the-pack quarterbacks, although I feel good about both of them. I feel like they're both going to be somewhere between that at least top 15 range, I'd say.
Yeah.
I feel good about that. I need a tight end. I need another running back to fill it out. But I got gun shy. I don't know if you guys did this. All of a sudden, I look at who they have on their ADP, and I'm like, ooh, you've got Derrick Henry above like other starting running backs in the league.
Well, Brandon and I were talking about
that.
this.
I
It's
can't.
got to be dynasty. It's got to be dynasty ADPs because there's no way they're going to have all
There's
those.
no way. They have so many rookies above other people, and then it throws me for a loop, and I'm just like,
don't look at it.
and then I get stressed, and then I'm like,
Just put it in alphabetical and you do you. That's what I say. By the way, I got Eric Decker in the 7th round.
7th. Yeah, so I am one pick. I'm the first pick overall at a 12-man league. So I went Brown, came back around, and I picked Drew Brees. They got Eddie Lacy, Kirk Cousins. Then I got Julian Edelman in the 5th round, Eric Decker in the 6th round. Got Woodhead, and that's a personal choice. I chose him over others just because I love Woodhead and I believe in him. Then I got Fleener, and I was able to get Giovanni Bernard in the 9th round.
oh, nice.
So I'm really happy with my team thus far. I think I have 3 good running backs, and I thought I was abandoning the run. I called Brandon, and I was like, I feel like I'm abandoning the run, you know. But I like my wide receivers, and I think my quarterbacks are stellar, so I'm not upset. I mean, Cody Fleener, it's
I like the
touch
Fleener
and go.
a lot. Fleener's good. Fleener's not touch and go. Fleener's gonna be.
So this guy's like, oh, Courtney's snipered Fleener from me,
Just doing the Fleener. Yep.
This guy's like, oh, you should be thankful. And I was like, oh, we got a Fleener hater, and he posted the game where it's like a deep ball to Fleener, and Fleener fumbles it, and like there's nobody within 10 yards of him, and he just drops the pass. And
You
he's
know
like,
what?
I'll never forget.
Which game? Which game?
Yeah.
I was like,
mean,
that's his
problem
deal.
with his drops are so majestic, where you're like, wow.
All
that
of them
was
are
a
meme-worthy.
drop. Yeah, they're all meme-worthy. He doesn't really drop the ball that much more than anyone else. It's just bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. Yeah, and I get it. He's burned you. I totally understand it. I'm just hoping in a new location with Drew Brees, and
He'll be good.
Oh yeah, no, he'll be great.
He'll be great.
And that guy
He'll be
better
great
not
too.
have like Mike Evans on his team because you can't complain about drops.
Well, that's what I said too. I was like, it's just like Mike Evans. Drops are the worst. Like they're the worst to watch.
But
you know,
it doesn't
God for the
matter
red
if they
zone.
get the opportunities.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
I'm with you, Courtney.
Well, enough about us, but I know like sometimes you like to hear how our drafting experiences are going, and since it's mid-July, drafting is always fun. And we have 22 spots on our roster, so we are just starting the fun here, picking our sleepers, aka I hope they touch the field come pick 18.
Yeah.
So
My husband texted me, goes, "How'd your draft go?" And I was like, "Oh, honey, this lasts like a week and a half." He's like, "No." Yo, yeah.
at least, yeah.
Yeah.
The way you're going, Ashley, you're gonna make those
Sure.
people wait for like a month.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Let's get into some fantasy football now. Let's get into this quarterback. First of all, I want to know how you guys go about drafting quarterbacks in standard leagues. Let's say 10 players, 10 people in the league. A lot of people wait for quarterbacks. Do we go high? Do you try to reach for the number 1, 2 guys, or do you want to wait until the mid-round range guys? You even want to wait longer than that for, say, a Romo or Derek Carr. Ashley, what do you think?
I rarely go for a top quarterback. I would rather get a top receiver or a top running back, as there is more of a spread of points between your elite and your second tier than there is in the quarterback position, in my personal opinion. So I'd rather hold out and take around the 5th, 6th best guy. You're still going to get great value. It's not too far of a difference, but I can then grab some other receivers and such. Now, if I'm at the end of a snake draft and I know I can grab like Cam Newton, which I can't imagine would fall this way, but if you're in a league where everybody's following the same mentality and they're taking receivers or running backs and you've got a shot at a top quarterback, then okay. If you're not going to get an elite in that top kind of 3 position, then sure, I would grab Russell Wilson. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I hold off, and I'm more of a I wouldn't say late round, but I like that kind of 5th, 6th best kind of guy.
Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a little non-committal. It's all about value. Most of the time I like to wait. There's the whole late round quarterback theory that all of these quarterbacks are going to score points. And there is an element of truth to that. They are going to score points. But let's be honest, some of them score 20 plus points more often than others. And that is the reality. And yes, you can play the matchup, but guess what? So is everyone else. And the plain fact of the matter is that Cam Newton and Russell Wilson are 2 of the most consistent quarterbacks in the league right now. And I know that we used to say avoid running quarterbacks. You want to have someone who's going to be passing the ball. I don't think that's true. Since 2012, Cam Newton and Russell Wilson have both been top 10 quarterbacks every single year except for Cam Newton once when he missed 2 games. Remember, he got in a car accident. Yeah. I mean, that's the only time. And he was still number 16. It wasn't like he dropped off into the 30s. Listen, I understand that there is that theory, and I'm with it. I'm doing the Andy Dalton, Kirk Cousins, Carson Palmer, Matt Ryan even instead. Yes. But man, sometimes these quarterbacks are falling really low. And if I can get them, it's not a horrible investment is all that I'm saying. Just feel your draft out. Feel your draft. It always, but the problem is that people take them in the first round when they're in kind of like friend leagues. They're like, well, he scored the most points. It's like, well, that's not the point.
Right.
The point is that everyone else scores a lot of points too. So just kind of feel it out. Feel it out.
I like it. Well, here's our list of our top 20 quarterbacks, and you can find all of our rankings again at herfantasyfootball.com. Number 1, we have Cam Newton. 2, Aaron Rodgers. 3, Russell Wilson. 4, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger. 6, Carson Palmer. 7, Luck. 8, Eli. 9, Andy Dalton. 10, Kirk Cousins. And then it goes Bortles, Rivers, Romo, Brady at 14, Carr, Stafford, Taylor, Ryan, Winston, and finishing up is Marcus Mariota at 20. Where do you ladies cut off the top quarterbacks? Like, who are you going to be going for high if you're going to go for a quarterback? Where does that cut off for you? Brandon?
For me, it's Drew Brees. Until that guy throws for under 4,000 yards in a season, he's not dead. So, I feel like every year people want to count him out, and he's just not out. And I have Brees in almost every mock and or regular actual draft that I've done so far this season. And again, it's only July, so
right.
Sometimes we have to get a reminder in the industry that other people haven't even thought about drafting yet. But you know what? He's thrown for 30-plus touchdowns in each of his last 8 seasons. He is extremely consistent. And he's also accurate on the long ball. Last season, only Ben Roethlisberger had a better passing percentage on passes that went for 20-plus yards. So Roethlisberger was completed 50.7%, and then Drew Brees completed 50.6%. Huge difference. Huge difference between the 2 of them in accuracy. So all I'm saying is that it's not even, if you can still be that accurate on the long ball, you haven't lost it. So all this talk is just, it's too much for me. Now, I think that Big Ben, Palmer, Luck, Manning, Dalton, Cousins, Bortles, Rivers, Romo, and Brady, the top 14 after Drew Brees, are all kind of the same for me. So I think that that's the second cutoff. But for me, if you're looking at it's the Drew Brees thing. And then, Tom Brady, I guess I can wait and talk about Tom Brady if you would like later, but I got some words.
You got some words. Ashley, what about you?
Well, I'll say that I'm okay with the Brady situation for the most part, but here's the thing. I have no problem with Brady, and I think that he will do great this season, as he always does, especially as, because of the suspension, because we all know Brady's going to come out guns a-blazing, trying to prove something after the suspension. But that's not what we're talking about here. I think what Brandon's probably going to allude to when she does talk about this is kind of the value that you can get with him because of this suspension, and where you'd have to draft him doesn't make it a good pick this year. especially because for me the issue with Brady is there's so much emotions with Brady, right? Because people high emotions. This isn't like Kirk Cousins got suspended for 4 games. This is Brady. So people are still going to draft Brady really high versus shifting him down the boards a little bit as to where you should put him for the fact that he's going to be out 5 games, well 4 games, and then he's out 5 weeks because of the bye week. So I mean, for me, that's the issue, is that where you'd have to take him is not worth it for the fact that he's going to be out. So that's my problem. Now, it's actually what the cutoff is, because, you know, we're just going to talk about Breeze again. Breeze, hot topic. For me, I agree. Breeze is the cutoff. I echo her sentiments on him entirely. We all agree on Breeze. But 2016 is the year that I fully support Russell Wilson, which is proof people can change.
Such an about face.
It is an about face. I support him. And Newton and Rogers are no-brainers. So for me, that's your 4. You know, right there. It is what it is. Now, I was tempted to throw Ben Roethlisberger in the mix, but more so, I consider him kind of the top of this like little mini second tier. Out of the list we have, for me, that's Ben and Palmer. It's like this little mini second tier of the guys that like Brandon's listing right there. So there's almost like when I'm looking at this list, I see essentially 5 tiers in this list of 20.
Yeah, and I get that too, because I personally think that Cam and Rodgers are in a league of their own. I think it's the 2 of them, just like it was last year where it was Rodgers and Luck. Now, Luck turned out to be freaking awful, and I think that one of them is going to be not so great. And if I had to put money on it, I think it's going to be Cam Newton. I think he's going to have a down year to his last year. No quarterback in fantasy who's been the top of fantasy has ever been number 1 again by 60 points. On the average, they drop 60 fantasy points. The only person to do it is Drew Brees.
Brees.
And again, Drew Brees. Drew Brees is real, you guys, and I have to say that I think that Drew Brees is going to be the number 1 quarterback this year. It's going to be between him and Rodgers, to me, and you know, Rodgers giving up cheese and meat most of the time. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So, scary.
And there's the whole Bachelor drama, so that.
But see, and people are taking Cam and Rodgers high. And I'm not going to take a quarterback that high. It's out of my question. So I know I'm not going to get Rodgers or Cam on any of my teams. And then I agree. I think there's another tier, and I cut it off at Carson Palmer. To me, like, I think that you have. And I'm talking about like value and where you can get them in talent. I think that it goes Russell Wilson down to Carson Palmer is like a little mini elite where I would love to get one if I can get them for the right price. I think that that's the money making section to me for value. And then from there, I mean, it gets dicey.
I have Andrew Luck really low.
Yeah, between like Andrew Luck. And I agree, like probably Tony Romo because of Tom Brady's suspension, but really Tom Brady's in there too. It's kind of like interchangeable.
Brady, I just like I have removed Brady from this list in my mind when I'm talking this too, because I'm like, it's just a weird year for Brady. He's like, to me, he doesn't even exist on this list. Not because he doesn't exist because he do poorly, but this isn't where he normally would be ranked. He wouldn't normally be 14, right? He's 14 because he's suspended. So for me, this is different in terms of we're talking purely for drafting purposes, not that he's not elite. He'll probably score plenty of points.
Right. We're talking about for the draft. Right. Yeah. This kind of goes into that like. At what point does your quarterback 1 list start turning into a quarterback 2 list?
Again, it's going to be Brady. We talk about him later in the show, right? I'm like lost in my own little thing here. You know, as far as everything is concerned here with Brady, I want to be just clear here. I baked that into my rankings forever ago, by the way. So I had him ranked at 14 with that in mind. No one else was ranking him like that. They were all ranking him like he was going to get out of this suspension. So that's why I have him a lot lower than a lot of people. But I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to lower him anymore because I already did that. Okay, he was 14 for that reason. Right. But I had an interview on Next Level Fantasy on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, which, by the way, we are coming back August 6th. Saturday night from 9 to 11 Eastern, so make sure to check us out. But I did an interview on Next Level Fantasy with Mike Clay from ESPN, and he asked me about Andrew Luck, why I had him ranked 7 because that was really low, and Tom Brady, why I had him ranked 14 because that was really low. And it was very clear to me. My problem with Tom Brady is that you have to have another guy fill in for a minimum of 5 games. 5 games, okay? And yes, one of them is the bye, and everyone has a bye week. But that's 5 out of 16 games if your championship's in 16. 5 out of 13 just to get you to the playoffs, right? So almost half of the games, he has to be not your quarterback. So why would you draft him that way? And then here is my big problem is in week 5 he's against Cleveland. Great, do it. Then he's home versus Cincinnati. Probably fine. Then he's at Pittsburgh, at Buffalo. Only one of the times that you can start Chris Hogan. I'm sorry. I'm not into that train. Then he has the bye week. But then it's Seattle, at San Francisco, at the Jets versus the Rams, Baltimore. And then in week 15, he's at Denver. And then in week 16, he's versus the Jets again. That's a lot of good defenses that he's going to face when he comes back.
Yeah.
And I don't want him. I mean, Denver and the Jets for the championship, I'm just saying, Tom Brady's great, but he's going to have to average 24.75 fantasy points to be a top 12 quarterback when he comes back based off of last year's numbers. So that's why he's the bottom of the quarterback ones, and only if you're in a 14-team league.
Boom. Boom. I think Brandon just dropped the mic.
I did. I just did. I didn't even wait. I didn't even make the motion because I was like, you should know in your head with the 7.
Yeah, you visually saw that I'm even doing it.
Ashley, what's your feelings?
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, for all intensive purposes, Brady's the cutoff of that Q1 for me. Again, he's not going to end up with Q1 numbers as a whole total season when all things play out because he's missing too many games to rank in. You know, when you look in the end of this season, he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback. It's just going to be borderline impossible without him. Like Brandon said, literally putting up 30-point games every single week. And he's got tough defense. But he will be a Q1 for you for when you can play him. He'll put up enough numbers more than likely that he's a Q1 in that facet of the game, in that mindset. So in terms of where that 2 is for me, it's Andy Dalton. He's the cutoff for me. In terms of if you're going to be like streaming quarterbacks, anybody in my opinion, Breeze and under, you can stream. You can stream anybody Breeze and under. Anyone between Cousins and Romo, which is Cousins, Blake Bortles, Phillip Rivers, and Romo. Again, this is kind of what was almost like my 3rd, 4th tier going on here. You know, in terms of them, I feel like it's a personal choice of what makes you feel warm and fuzzy in terms of who you want to be the other guy that you stream, because they're all interchangeable. Like literally, they all are going to end up probably within like 5 to 10 points of each other. It all depends on the week. And if you're streaming, you just got to play them on the right week. So you're playing matchups. So again, you're not going to care as much about who's going to fall directly on top of each other in that final standings there. And anyone after Carr is who I would grab and still be willing to stream if I wasn't able to get people between the Cousins and Romo.
Yeah. I think it's so funny. All 3 of us have Tom Brady as the cutoff. But I wouldn't be mad if I got Stafford or Carr either, because it's really deep this year in quarterbacks. Yeah. And Stafford, you know, just fell out of the top 10 in fantasy points last year, and which is crazy to me because you watch the games and it's just like, oh, so painful. I can't imagine being a Lions fan. But they have the 2nd easiest schedule for quarterbacks next year. Stafford does. And so, to me, like, if he's your first, awesome. And if he's your second, even better.
Well, because what you're looking at. He was 9th in one I looked at.
Yeah. If you get a bust guy like Andrew Luck was for you last year, having somebody like Stafford who's just consistent is nice. And I'll tell you right now, Carson Palmer, do not forget it. He is the most consistent man alive.
Right.
That guy is crazy. Don't forget it. That's like all I wrote about him last year. It was like consistent.
Yep.
He's going to get you 19 to 22 points. That's what he's going to do every week. That's what it is.
I'll tell you what my thinking was, though. My only concern with Stafford is I don't know what the offense looks like without Megatron for the last, 40 years, right? I mean, I can't imagine the Detroit Lions without Calvin Johnson, Fair. So I'm having a hard time. That's why, to me, he's right there on that cusp.
Yeah.
And I address that later on.
Oh, we'll get into it. Let's go to the go. There you go.
The cuspy issue.
Awesome. All right. Out of the top 5 quarterbacks, and again, we have them ranked: Cam Newton, Rodgers, Wilson, Breeze, and Ben Roethlisberger. Who are you taking? Why are you taking them? And why are you not taking one of the guys next to them? Ashley?
When we were doing our notes, my sisters had already filled this section out, so I knew who they were both taking, so I didn't want to choose the exact same person, although I agree with them.
Love you, Google Docs.
Love you. So, but I like Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, because they are, for the most part, player-proof. And so much like how we talk about DeAndre Hopkins being quarterback-proof, these two guys are able to get it done whether or not the players around them are getting it done. So they have now both proven and they can do it on the feet as well as they can hash it out in the air. And I think that's what the difference maker was, like Brian talked about earlier in the episode, that for the most part, historically to some extent, we've said, okay, maybe don't stay away from purely rushing quarterbacks, because rushing quarterbacks generally don't actually get you that many fantasy points. They don't. They're great for the actual football organization, but they don't get you that many fantasy points. But these two guys have both matured in their game in the last couple seasons that now they can be trusted in the air, and they are able to air it out, which in turn has actually made their running game even better. So for me, I like the fact that to some extent they both are quarterback proof. As we said, I think last show, Russell Wilson was number 3 in 2014, third highest scoring quarterback, last year. I mean, the guy is proven to be consistent, and Cam Newton, like Brandon said, has fallen in the top 10. Last year, I agree, will not be the same. I don't think that you're going to end up with the same points with Cam Newton. It was a special season, but they're both consistent enough, and so for me, I would rather take a guy that is consistent, that will consistently get me 21 points a week or whatnot, than a guy that gets me 12 points one week, and then he's got a great matchup and he's going to get me 36 points. I'd rather take the 21-point guy that I can count on, because that gives me more flexibility to be a bit more risky with my other positions.
And Cam Newton may not be number 1, but what are the chances of him not being in the top 10?
Right.
Like 0, right? I mean, unless he gets hit hit by a car again, which, can happen, he's going to be a top 10 guy. I mean, as we know. I mean, that was tragedy, right? I mean, he got in a car accident, and it was like, oh my gosh, and he bounced back. He still came back. I just
Superman. He's Superman.
He's Superman. That's right. I just feel like that's why you're drafting him, right? You're like, this is probably going to be in top 5, but definitely going to be in top 10 if he can stay healthy.
And definitely isn't going to get me 6-point games. Because that's how you lose, is when your quarterback drops you a single-point game.
Ryan Tannehill.
What?
Just saying.
Tanny. He's not even in the top 20. I love it. Love it. Brandon, what do you think?
Well, I lost my mind over Breeze earlier, so obviously you know how I feel about that. But I'm going to take a second and talk about Aaron Rodgers, because no one has said his name out loud in the fantasy community, I think. We've kind of forgotten that he exists based on the fact that last season was obviously pedestrian. But we need to do an exorcism. We all just need to get it out of our system.
Hold on.
Let it go. Let last season go.
Sixth highest scoring quarterback is not pedestrian. This is the part. There's this crazy standard for Aaron Rodgers. The fact that he fell out of the top 5 by 1 slot all of a sudden makes this implosion of a season.
Exactly, and that's why we need to all just take a moment. Get out the demons. Let it go. You guys, he's amazing. Just let it go. Whatever you need to do to feel better about yourself, do it, because Aaron Rodgers is still the real deal. But yes, he was a disappointment last season from a fantasy perspective, and frankly, we all expected more from a real football perspective. He had some issues. On all passes that are for 20 yards or more, he only completed 39.1%. Why? Because Jordy Nelson wasn't there. It's just 2 words, people. Jordy Nelson. Now, my problem with that is if he, for whatever reason, Jordy Nelson's not there again, I will get concerned. Okay, that if something crazy happens, but all systems look like they are a go. Okay, listen. Also, on 243 of his dropbacks, tied with Teddy Bridgewater for the 5th most in the league, he was under pressure. He had a lot of issues. And by the way, he was sacked 46 times. That was 2nd most in the league, only behind Mr. Sacks himself, Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
Yowza. So of course it wasn't what we hoped it would be. But everything has improved, and they are building around him, and they know that what they need to improve. I do believe that things will be better for him. And you know what? He actually completed 51.8% of those deep passes the year before. Yeah. Again, Jordy Nelson. And I hate to say it, but Nelson. Needed.
Well, the rest of them were hurt too. It wasn't like the rest of his receiving core was stellar in health. I mean, it was just Last year didn't happen, guys. Last year did not happen. Put it out of your heads.
Yeah. By the way, the year before, he was also only sacked 28 times.
Yeah.
Almost 20 less times.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, we've already talked about him. So, but again, Drew Brees, people, Drew Brees. I mean,
this is actually the Drew Brees show.
It is the Drew Brees show. Out of 4 out of the 5 last years, he's had at least 3 games with over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, and no other quarterback can say that. So, it's a real deal. He does have a hard schedule, and I just wanted to go over this real fast with you guys before moving on. He just has a really hard schedule. So, week 10, he goes the Broncos, then it's Carolina, then it's the Rams. You get a little bye week here, Detroit and Tampa Bay, but then it's Arizona in week 15, depending on when your championship is or playoffs. This is when you want to get a guy who has an easier schedule, like a Matthew Stafford, to lead you through those weeks. Although it's Drew Brees, and he's proven that he can do it. Hopefully the Saints do get down, so it is a bit of a shootout, and we get even more fantasy points from the dude. I'm cool with that. But it is the one scary thing about Brees this year is his schedule. It starts off great with, the Raiders' defense is improved, so it's not awesome, but Raiders, Giants, Atlanta, San Diego. That's pretty nice. I'm not going to be upset about that. It's delicious. But you just want to make sure that when you back yourself up with a quarterback, unless you're just going to stream quarterbacks, that it's somebody who has a schedule right around there that's pretty easy.
Favorable. Yep.
Yeah. I'll have to say I found 10 to 13 interesting. You have Kirk Cousins, Blake Bortles, 10 and 11, 2 young quarterbacks, and then you have Phillip Rivers and Tony Romo, 2 older quarterbacks, excuse me. Both of who, are stricken with the injury bug last year. Obviously, Romo fell apart twice, broke his collarbone twice, and Rivers, he did not get injured himself, but everybody else on his offense got injured. Everybody else. So, Ashley, do you trust these young guys over these older guys? Are you sticking with the oldies? Where do you kind of see this range of these 4 quarterbacks in particular?
I mean, I like them all. As we discussed, this is kind of that little sweet spot of, especially if you're streaming quarterbacks, it's a sweet spot. So, as I said, I like to go around that. I try to strive for that 5th, 6th best ranked quarterback. That's what I go for. And then sometimes I will either draft a quarterback that very next round or like a round or 2 later. And I draft them early because if you are going to stream, you need to have 2 good of those second tier, top of the 3rd tier middle guys. You can't stream quarterbacks with a Carson Palmer and then have I don't want to say Tyrod Taylor because I'd be okay streaming Tyrod Taylor too, but
Jay Cutler,
Alex Smith. You don't want that guy as your guy that you're going to stream with. So for me, if I had to choose, I like Rivers this year, and I don't know why I'm so optimistic about Rivers, but I don't. It's a feeling, right? It's one of those weird feelings.
But, I got a feeling. Ooh.
Yeah, it's probably a wrong feeling, but I like it. Well, as I said, as you said, Courtney, he threw a ball in mere direction of somebody, and they fell down for the entire season. It was like
retired.
It was just bad. I mean, he had literally no one to throw to, and it was just horrible offensive line. Everything was a problem. Absolutely no running game to be able to help drive the actual passing part of the offense. It was a nightmare. But I like the Travis Benjamin and the Allen combo. I think that's going to help out. And I also have an issue with Romo. I mean, how many times can you break your collarbone? I don't know if it's just bad luck or if this guy's got a serious calcium or vitamin D deficiency. Possible. But at the same time, he's been a top 10 quarterback for the majority of nearly a decade now. Like, he seems to be able to fall into that area, but to me, it's just one of those injuries, kind of like a soft tissue injury that just makes me a little bit nervous. So, again, I like him, but if I have a choice of guys in that range, I'm probably not going to go Romo just for the fact that it makes me a little bit nervous.
Brandon, what are your feelings?
Well, Romo, high risk, high reward, right? I mean, I believe that he's just as likely to be a top 8 quarterback as he has the chance to be in the bottom of the barrel, right? And only play 4 games. And I don't think there's going to be any in between, frankly.
Agreed.
You know, it's all about his health. Excluding last season, Romo's been a top 12 fantasy scorer in 7 of his last 8 seasons. However, he's 36 years old. Back-to-back collarbone injuries, obviously. And then they want to run the ball with Ezekiel Elliott behind that number 1 ranked, according to Pro Football Focus, offensive line 2 years in a row. Not a fluke. Low ceiling, but if he stays healthy, a really high floor, and again, a great streaming option when he plays. I'm very high on Cousins as well, and I feel fine about it. I know that other people have him ranked lower than I do, and I don't care. The guy had the highest completion percentage last year, so it's not just the points. It's not just the touchdowns. He's accurate. He actually has done a good job, and you know what?
It's weird. He makes it look easy a little bit. He was on a struggling team when it came to the running game and keeping plays in order, but he just seemed to like get it out and get it into those receivers' hands. I don't know.
Well, and keep in mind, too, Deshaun Jackson did nothing last year.
Nothing.
So if he could step up his game and play, I don't know, like he has
his
entire NFL career.
Right.
Imagine how good Kirk Cousins could do that.
I mean, Deshaun Jackson never really got healthy, right? So that was part of the problem. This year should be healthy. Right. And the thing is that I just feel like Jay Gruden did this with Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton is the other fantasy guy that's not a sexy pick. No one's going to be like, ooh, cool, you picked Andy Dalton. But we all know he's efficient. No one's complaining about having Andy Dalton these days as long as he's on the field. You know, unfortunately last year he got hurt. So that's why I believe in Kirk Cousins. I think if anyone's going to regress, it's going to be Blake Bortles. I just feel like their defense is better, which is a good thing for Jaguars fans. Congratulations. But I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball as much. I think, he has some interception problems, things like that.
You are not getting kicked out of the NFL, Jacksonville.
You're not going to get kicked out this year.
You don't have to come to the games again like you never do, but you're not going to get kicked out of the NFL.
I feel like the Jaguars are a sleeper defense.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. No, I don't. I don't know.
I don't think Bortles is going to drop as much as everyone else does. Everyone's pretty nervous, and I don't think there's a reason to be that nervous.
No, but would you rather have Cousins?
Bortles fan this year.
Yeah, I'm not.
I mean, it stinks because that offense is still really awesome, and he just got even more awesome with Chris Ivory. But I just think that there's something I'm not keen on Bortles this year. I love Kirk Cousins. I'm with Brandon and Ash. I just think that Kirk Cousins there's something about him that's like Drew Brees-esque. It's just easy to watch. Unlike watching Brandon LaFell catch balls or Mike Evans, that hurts. Kobe Fleener. It's nice to watch Kirk Cousins throw the ball, and just it's enjoyable. It doesn't stress me out. And I'm on Ashley's train, too, with Phillip Rivers. I love Phillip Rivers this year. Again,
you like that?
You like that? You like that? I'm going to wear my bolo tie next week. I don't have one, so I'm going to have to buy one. But those two are my guys. The Romo injury freaks me out. I just don't see him staying alive through the season. I just don't see it. This is a good opportunity to ask one of our Twitter questions. It kind of goes along with these oldies and the goodies. From John Moser at DTC_John Moser. Quarterbacks under 30 to build your dynasty leagues. We don't talk about dynasty much on our show, but I really like Derek Carr. And I just think that Oakland is only going up. There wasn't much lower they could go from 2 years ago. So I think that Derek Carr, to me, is a great quarterback to get that I think Oakland feels confident in. You don't have to worry about a quarterback competition anytime soon. That's one of my young quarterbacks that I like for Dynasty. Ladies?
I like Winston, too, but I think Winston's the sexier pick just because he's, a more high-profile player. But I like Carr more than I like Winston. But Winston's got really great work ethic, and they really love him in Tampa. And he's got great energy with the team, and he's creating really great relationships with his receivers.
Yeah,
he's doing all the right things. And I do think we're going to see vast improvement from him, and they've invested in him. He's not going anywhere. He's their guy. He was proven to be able to keep everything clean for a year, so that's a bonus as well. We're not having a Johnny Manziel situation on our hands yet, fingers crossed. So I do like Jameis Winston. I think he's a bit more of an obvious pick, but Derek Carr, man, that guy can gunsling it, and he's got Amari Cooper, who's also a young receiver there to grow with.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a quarterback already that you're okay with now and you're building your dynasty team as opposed to drafting your dynasty team, I do think Jared Goff is going to be good in about 3 years. But I think it's going to take 3 years. Then they're going to have to,
because they have to build the whole
wide receivers. Yeah, they're building the whole team.
Yeah.
But I think he has the job long term, which a lot of times, like with these young guys, you're not quite sure. And it's like, I mean, look at RG3, right? They didn't.
Yeah.
They left him to go. I think that Goff's going to get a little bit of wiggle room because this is clearly a defensive team, so they're not going to blame him if his numbers aren't great. I think with RG3, they wanted to have an offensive team, so when he started to falter, they immediately were like, what the? And then once they got a new coach, they were like, I'm not faithful to this guy at all. So, but for me, I think that the organization, regardless of what happens to Mr. Mustache, is going to stick with Jared Goff. So.
I agree. And the best thing that could happen is they actually do really poorly this year to get a high draft pick to start building that wide receiver core, because they don't have anything for Goff to throw to talent-wise it could even remotely be considered a lead at any point in time in that organization. They got Gurley, they got the defense, they got Goff, they took the piece they needed, which is the quarterback, which is more important than the receiver piece. But if they perform poorly enough, which I think is probably expected from them this year, they can get the wide receiver piece that they need to start actually building that organization from the offensive side of things.
Well, they gave up so much. I think they actually should do decent this year to just get anything. I think that next year is where they're going to need draft picks. They gave up so much to get Goff. Actually, another one, Paxton Lynch. Always not going to let the Broncos suck for too long. If he's the next guy, that's big time.
Yeah.
Risky. I just want to say thank you to RJ Villa Gomez for your question. He asked us about whether we wait for a quarterback or we go for one of the top elite guys. We covered that at the top of the show. And at JL Foster 10, he asked us to talk about the Scott Fishbowl League, which we also did at the top of the show. So thanks for your guys' tweets, and thank you at Mine Maggie. For always tweeting us. Jamie, you're fun. You're fun. And yeah, I like Drew Brees, okay? Back off. Love him.
He also has as much knowledge about Kate Beckinsale's whereabouts.
Yes, he does.
Yes,
Thank
he
you.
does.
That's not just
very much educated. Yes, she left her husband for the guy of Underground. And yes, that was the series that she did. Thank you.
And he also brought up Mariota, which I agree. I mean, Marcus Mariota's a great talent. My problem with Marcus is the offense and the coaching. They really want to run the ball, and they just, I think he personally is talented. I'm very concerned about the structure of the team and the offensive play calling. But we'll see this year. But
this year's gonna. I think it might get better. I like Mariota. You know, he's got a tight end, obviously, to die for, and I think that the team's building. So I think it's the work in progress in Tennessee, but I think they're going to get better here faster than later. But it is that time of the show where we do our deja vu. And yes, they're going to get into Tom Brady because, again, Tom Brady is supposed to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season. How do you go about drafting him, and do you just avoid him altogether? Real quick, Brandon. Just kidding. If you want to vent, you do it. You go.
No. Too much venting. I already talked about it because I couldn't remember. I was like, I know I wrote about this. I know I did more on this. Listen, the big news of the day. This is Wednesday, which also is actually the 15-year anniversary of Legally Blonde. In case you want to feel old, that's about all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, 15 years ago. Yeah. So today was the big day where we found out that Tom Brady's suspension seems to be upheld unless he wants to go to the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg is just going to laugh.
I would love to see a Brady-Ruth showdown.
Oh,
I would love to see that.
The RBG is going to be like, excuse me? You have wasted our time. I highly doubt he's going to do that. He could, though. He's Tom Brady. You just never know. But as far as I'm concerned, it has happened. It's Groundhog Day, and everything's roosted. Just don't do it. I shouldn't say that. Actually, I think if he drops a little bit, I think he's value. I think you will get some good, but he's in streaming territory. He's no longer the starting guy territory, and that is the change.
That's the change. Ashley Stafford, you know, we all go way back with him. I got divorced from him 2 seasons ago during the snowstorm of 2014. I'll never forget that.
Did he get, what, 2 points that game?
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. It wasn't the game, okay? I can understand you play like crap during that kind of condition, but it was after the game. The weeks following the game,
it was a total mental implosion.
It was a total mental implosion, yes. And I was like, oh. Anyways, what does this do for your feelings towards him without Calvin Johnson being there, Megatron's audios?
Well, I mean, gone are the days of Stafford being a QB1, and hello again to being QB2. Matt Stafford has not been a QB1 for the past 2 seasons, at least. You know, I mean, this was his best year, 2015 was his best year, not overall, but in terms of our recent history with how he's been actually tracking. But, you know, my issue is he didn't do that badly. From what I looked at, he was the 9th highest scoring quarterback, and that is, you know, a year where Golden Tate stepped up into the Calvin Johnson role for the most part, because Calvin Johnson didn't play a big part last year. He did not. He wasn't Megatron as we knew him to be, and that's how Matthew Stafford got to the position he was last year. That was not the case. You know, Golden Tate, I think, will step in there nicely, and I feel okay about that, because there's not going to be. I mean, yes, there's a change because you've got that veteran leadership of Megatron. You've got just the presence of Megatron. You know what he's going to do when he's a massive body. I get that. But overall, I feel decent about him. I think he's going to end up right around 12th. If I had to guess where he's going to fall at the end of the year, he'll be about the 12th highest scoring quarterback, which is just where I need him to be in terms of my consistency that I'm looking for if I'm streaming him. I'm fine with that. Fine with it, yep.
That's my new sleeper, Eric.
Is that your sleeper? I like it. Tight ends matter, guys. Tight ends matter.
I got really excited.
Guys, here are a series of questions you can answer with only 2 sentences, and I have to say that to my sisters because they don't understand what that means. Only 2 sentences max, people. 2. So you are on a fantasy football desert island, and you can only pick the one quarterback to represent your team, to be on your roster, to be your quarterback. Here we go. I wish I had like a game show thing, like going off.
Sound effect.
All right, Brandon, Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota?
Points, Winston. Life, Mariota. No other comment.
Ashley?
Winston. I like Mariota, but the team makes too many mistakes, and Winston has really stepped up his work ethic, and I think he's going to tighten up his game even more this year.
It's all about targets, you guys, and Winston has the targets to throw to. So, unfortunately, I have to go Winston this year. Matchup-wise, though, Mariota's going to beat him every time. Eli Manning or Andy Dalton? Ashley?
So, Corn doesn't understand is that I only do 2 sentences, but I do ... to extend my sentences to be quite long.
I've seen a lot of commas.
Yeah, you just wasted a sentence.
Yeah, that doesn't count. I have a really, really, really hard time going against my favorite Red Rocket. But Eli Manning, even when he looks like he's playing horribly, and we've all seen him look this way, and you wonder how in the world has this guy won 2 Super Bowls? Because I always think it's like, how has this guy won 2 Super Bowls? He always seems to manage to pull it out with decent numbers at the end of the season in terms of fantasy points. And his receivers are on point this year. I think the new coaching change will also bring something out in him.
Ash is the worst.
Brandon.
2 sentences. It is 2.
Both and play matchups. With a gun to my head, I pick Manning, hence my rankings.
There you go. And I pick Manning as well. He has an easier schedule, more depth in wide receivers, and his division has way worse cornerbacks that he has to go up against than poor Dalton. So that's where I'm going to. Aaron Rodgers or Cam Newton?
Cam Newton, because those rushing touchdowns are delicious. Only needed 1 sentence.
We got a Cammy. Ashley, who you got?
Rodgers. He's got Jordy back, and he's got something to prove this year. And Cam Newton, he will be great, and he's going to come out, I think, even more polished. But Rodgers has done it more consistently than Cam Newton.
There you go. And I agree, Ashley. I think being number 1 in fantasy points only hurts you coming into the next year. I'm going Rodgers. Jordy Nelson's back. Eddie Lacy's trimmed down. The offensive line is healthier. The team is back. This will make Cobb better as well. I'm into the Rodgers. We got Tyrod Taylor or Derek Carr.
I'm going to go Carr for the simple reasons of I think the Raiders have done a better job as an organization building their team around Carr versus the Bills and how they're building themselves around Taylor. It's not as focused on that quarterback, and I like the receivers for Carr.
Brandon.
I'm less concerned about Derek Carr getting injured, and so I'll go with him with 2 rookie receiving options, Cooper and Walford. He had a pedestrian 61.1 completion percentage, but he also had a league-high 44 drops on the season.
Yeah, and you know what? Both of them have tough schedules, so you can't go off of schedules. But here, really fast, Tyrod Taylor. Starting week 2, you have the Jets, Arizona, Patriots, Rams. Then you go into the Seattle, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Oakland. Yikes. That scares me. And not only that, but you're right, injury prone. If you're looking at a guy deep in the league, you got to take in consideration of injury. Tyrod Taylor is a running quarterback. And not only that, but Buffalo didn't seem like sold by him going into the season.
That's what I'm saying. They didn't seem sold.
So it kind of scary. Derek Carr seems to be what they're building around in Oakland. So although he has a tough schedule too, I think I would go him. Joe Flacco or Jay Cutler, the rejects, my favorites.
Jay Cutler without Adam Gase is a Jay Cutler that I know, and he's made me cry on more than one occasion. So I think Flacco is a sneaky play with Mark Trestman and a healthy receiving core.
I feel the opposite. I am undecided if Forte leaving Chicago will mean more fantasy points for Cutler because they're not going to run as much and he'll be able to air it out more to his healthy receivers now. Or if that means bad things because the guaranteed dump off to Forte, who was a receiving back, is going to be a problem. Either way, Cutler intrigues me more than Joe Flacco does, and his players around him intrigues me more than Joe Flacco's receiving core. So I'm going to go Cutler.
Kamar Aiken till I die.
I think I heard that Jay Cutler has had 6 different offensive coordinators as a Bear.
He's a difficult man.
He's a difficult man. He's going to do whatever the heck he wants to do, and it doesn't matter what his offensive coordinator says. He's going to do whatever he wants. And for that, I'm going Cutler because I hope that he does whatever he wants and he throws that ball out to Jeffrey and White every second he gets a chance. I am scared.
It could be a beautiful disaster.
Bennett is gone, and Miller is not going to be able to fill in the same way. Although I do love Miller, and I hope that's not the case.
I love Zach Miller.
I think quarterbacks like Cutler that are very emotional players need that outlet for a tight end. But even if Miller can't make up for that, maybe Langford can. I think I have to go with Cutler just because of the talent around him. I think we have to do it. Teddy Bridgewater or Mark Sanchez?
Wow.
Teddy, but not by much. That's as much effort as I can put into thinking about these two guys.
Bridgewater, because I know he has the job. It's a conservative offense that only passed 51.1% of the time, but I'm hoping that he gets to control the game more.
I'm going Sanchez, you guys. That guy has an arm.
Wow.
He's made it to the playoffs. The dude is legit. I think that he's going to be throwing more than people think he's going to be throwing. And I think that he is going to have a better first 4 games than Mr. Brock Osweiler.
Ooh.
Going up now. All right, ladies. Let's end the show with 2016 bold quarterback predictions.
I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to be a top 15 quarterback this year. I love Keenan Allen. Teams already know that what Danny Woodhead can do, and no one else on the team scares me. That's it. And even Old Faithful Antonio Gates, he scares me because of his health. Their offensive line ranked dead last in Pro Football Focus grades, and I just don't think they did enough to improve it, and that is the worst part of the whole situation.
Sad.
Yeah, sorry to be a Debbie Downer on the bold prediction, but hey.
Ashley,
Right.
bold prediction.
Well, I think it's hard because there's not I don't think anything's really that surprising in the quarterback position, right? Is anything that could shuffle, I wouldn't be that surprised by. But I'm going to say Derek Carr finishes in the top 10.
All right.
It's not crazy, Bull. He finished like 14th last season, but
Yeah, I mean,
some of the mighty have to fall for him to get in, though.
You didn't knock my hat off, but we're good.
And I was saying, there's no quick surprises you really have in the quarterback position that's like shocking.
Kirk Cousins, Tyrod Taylor.
I mean, the only thing shocking would be like Jay Cutler is going to be the number one highest scoring fantasy quarterback this year. But I can't give a prediction I don't believe.
I agree. Fair.
I think my bold prediction is that do I say this? I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a top 5 quarterback this year. And I think that Drew Brees is going to be number 1. I'm going to make 2. Because I'm confident. And that one was for you, Jamie, because I'm obsessed with Drew Brees this year. All right? I love him. I'm only going to draft him one time, though, because if he sucks, like I got invested with Miami last year, and that screwed me over every which way.
All your leagues. Yep.
In all my leagues.
Got to diversify your portfolio.
Diverse it. Although you're cheering for everybody and their brother on Sundays, it's okay. It's okay. Well, we pretty much touched every single quarterback in the top 20 and a few outside of that as well. If you have any questions for us, please hit us up at Twitter or on Twitter at HerFantasyFB or on Facebook /HerFantasyFootball. You could also go to herfantasyfootball.com and check out our rankings. We update them weekly during off season and during the season. So hop over there. Next week we're going to be covering our wide receivers. Lots to talk about there. Lots of depth in that one. We can't just cover 20 people, unfortunately. Talk about some Sterlings, and there's going to be some crazy conversations going on. So make sure you come back next week to listen to us about talking about wide receivers. Until then, no more faking it.